up guys, welcome back for another video. So today we're going to be doing a maintenance video on my 2007 Triumph Daytona. So what I want to do in today's video is show you guys the easiest, most effective way to bleed your motorcycle brakes. They might be ATV brakes or even car brakes. So first off, let's talk a little bit about why you need to bleed your brakes, or why you should bleed your brakes every once in a while. In my case, on my Triumph Daytona, what's going on is my front brakes, the most important brakes, are getting a little bit squishy. And what I mean by that is the handle doesn't really stop, it just kind of keeps going. So what that really means is there's probably air in the system. If you guys don't know how brakes work, is it compresses fluid against your brake cylinder, which presses your pads together against your rotor to obviously slow whatever you're riding down. But if air gets in your lines, what happens is air is compressible. So instead of compressing your brake cylinder against your rotor, what happens is that air in the line actually compresses, and therefore your brakes are squishy. For the most part, fluids aren't compressible, so that's why we use brake fluid to use in hydraulic brakes. So as I was saying, I think what's going on with my Triumph Daytona is I think I have some air in the front brake lines. And how I'm going to get that air out is by a process called bleeding my brakes. And I bought this kit at O'Reilly's actually for I think 40 or 50 bucks, but you can find them on Amazon for a lot cheaper. This kit makes the whole process 10 times easier. You actually don't need this kit to bleed your brakes, but if you want to do it the best, easiest, fastest way that leads to the best results, I definitely recommend getting a brake bleeder kit online for 20-30 bucks. And I have the Mighty Vac kit, but I'll throw a couple links in the description below for maybe this kit or another kit very similar that works just as well for I think 20 to 30 bucks. Let me explain what this kit really helps with and why it makes the process of bleeding your brakes so much easier. The normal way to do it without this kit would be to continuously pump this, hold it down, crack your bleeder, just let a little bit of fluid out every time. You might have to do that maybe 50, 60, 70 times just to bleed your complete brake system. Whereas with this kit, what you can do is basically just continually fill, what we're gonna do is continually fill our reservoir up and just suck the fluid out by pumping our gun. It makes the process a lot easier. So let's go ahead and set up our mini vac system. So here's our mini vac. We're gonna go ahead and take maybe a couple inches, 3 inches of, I think this is 1/4 inch tubing, but it comes with the kit, so you don't have to worry about that really. You'll never use as much tube as comes with the kit. We're gonna go ahead and do that. We're gonna go ahead and take this, and this side goes into the part without the nozzle. So this goes right here, just like this. Go ahead and put your tube on, like so. And then we're gonna put our bottle on there. Kind of just locks into place. Oops. There we go, airtight seal. And then we're gonna take another about maybe 8-inch section of tubing, and that goes on the other side. And this is the tubing that has to fit your brake bleeder screw on your caliper, which most of them just call for, I think, 1/4 inch tube. Again, it comes with the kit. So let's go ahead and put that on there like that. And now our kit is ready to go, and we are ready to start bleeding our brakes. So the first thing we're going to want to do is find our reservoir for our front brakes. My reservoir and most all sport bikes and motorcycles have their front brake reservoir right up by the handlebars. And before we go ahead and unscrew our cap, one thing we really need to go over is the fact that brake fluid is extremely corrosive. It gets corrosive to your skin and especially paint. So you're definitely going to want to lay a towel down around your brake reservoir when you're filling your brake fluid. And you should just be very careful with brake fluid in general. It strips paint off like crazy. Alright, so as you guys can see, I wrapped a towel around my brake reservoir. Another thing, just quickly before we get started, you want to make sure that your drain, or I guess not the drain, the tube that comes off your reservoir is at the lowest point. So mine's on the right side, so I have my bike kind of on an incline in my garage where my fluid is tilted towards the tube. So when I fill it, no risk of air bubbles entering the tube because it's the lowest point. All right, so let's go ahead and crack our brake reservoir cap here, and I got this thing stuck to it. All right, there we go. Mine's kind of hard to see, excuse me. It's kind of hard to see because my windshield or my fairing's in the way. What I want to mention is there's two styles of these brake reservoirs. So I have the plastic one, and there's also a metal one, which some motorcycles have. My quad has it. They're the better ones in my opinion. But one thing I want to mention about these plastic ones is they have a little rubber cup in them. And when I was first doing my brake fluid flush on this motorcycle when I got it, I was filling the fluid in here thinking, well, of course there's a hole at the bottom of this cup to you know, allow the fluid to go into the system. Not true. It's just a cup basically to push the fluid down into to kind of fill up some space within your reservoir. So this has to come out to fill fluid into your plastic reservoir right here. So I took my rubber boot out of here, and now we're gonna go forward with the rest of the process. But before we do that, I do want to talk about brake fluid for just a quick second. So there's basically two types of commonly used brake fluid. DOT4, which is used in most you know, power sports like motorcycles, four-wheelers, ATVs, dirt bikes, stuff like that. This is synthetic, as you can see right there. Most cars use what's called DOT3. You want to make sure you use the right brake fluid for your specific vehicle. And of course it will say that on your cap there. You can see right at the top of mine if the camera would focus, DOT4 brake fluid. So make sure to use the right kind. So let's go over the process quickly of how to do this. So one thing you want to make sure is that your brake reservoir is always full when you're bleeding your brakes, because what's going to happen is we're going to suck the fluid out of the bottom by our caliper down here through our bleeder screw right here, and it's going to obviously suck from our reservoir. So we always need to make sure that we have this full of brake fluid for our bleeder to suck from. And of course that is what we're going to do next. I'm going to go ahead and fill my brake reservoir up with fluid. Alright, so next let's go down to our caliper. I have two front calipers, so we will need to bleed both calipers. I'm going to start with my right one right here. I'm just going to go ahead and put that end of the tube right on that bleeder screw right there. And now we're going to bring up the vacuum to about 15. Well, actually, we'll just do 12 for now. Now we're going to go ahead and take an 8mm wrench, and we can kind of just set this bottle right here for now, and we are going to loosen this bleeder screw. And oh, I guess it's not an 8mm. Hold on guys, I got to oh, this is the 8mm. Now we're going to loosen this bleeder screw, and oh wow, hopefully you guys saw that, but there was a lot of air in that actually. And now I'll show you guys the brake reservoir. We're actually sucking down, I don't know if you guys can tell, but we're sucking down brake fluid from our brake reservoir. So we got to make sure we keep that full. So right now I'm going to go ahead and add some more brake fluid to the reservoir here. And now let's go ahead and pump up our gun again. Pumped it up. Let's go ahead and crack that bleeder screw. Close it. I'm gonna go ahead and check the reservoir up top and see how we're doing on fluid again. Brakes are already feeling much better. All right, so I actually just went ahead and emptied our container. It was getting a little full, so I just went ahead and emptied that. Make sure your bleeder is always closed on that. I just want to emphasize that. When you're applying your vacuum, when that needle's going down, you want to close that needle, close the valve when the needle gets towards the bottom. You don't want to just close the valve after it's done sucking, because you want to make sure that no air is going to get back into your system. So right now my bleeder valve is closed, and I'm going to go ahead and move around to the other caliper and do that quick. And of course it's the exact same process on this side. Let's go ahead and put our hose on there, apply a vacuum, get our wrench, crack that bleeder valve open. Lots of air bubbles. tighten that valve while it's still sucking. And honestly, that might be good. I think we only needed one on that side because that was a short line. I did the first one we did was the long line all the way up to the master cylinder. This second one is just a short little brake line, so there's not much fluid in here that we need to bleed. All right, I think that side's done. I didn't see any air bubbles coming out of here. When we first cracked it, you guys saw, well, I don't know if you could see on the camera, but a lot of air bubbles came out at first. So I think this side is also looking good. So now that both our calipers are bled, some motorcycles, most motorcycles I believe, actually have another bleeder up by the master cylinder. The master cylinder is right here, connects to your reservoir. So we're gonna go ahead and bleed this as well, just to be sure that we got all the air bubbles out. But if you guys can see, our brakes are much better than they were, much better. Go ahead and pump this up. Crack this bleeder screw. So I'm gonna come behind this with the towel because there's still some fluid in here like I was saying. I'm gonna try to soak that up. Yep, there we go, perfect. Perfect, and we're just gonna go ahead and replace that little rubber boot on there and we are good to go. Let me show you guys the brakes now. Super nice. This is this is by far the best brakes I've ever had on this bike. Let's go ahead and adjust it. Yeah, these things are perfect now. And it looks like we actually have enough brake fluid left in our reservoir to just replace our rubber cup here. And I'm gonna make sure to watch it as I place it in there, that it doesn't overflow. Actually, I think we have to drain some. Looks like we have to drain a little bit of brake fluid out because as this rubber boot sits in there, it obviously takes up space. So let's go ahead and soak some of that brake fluid up in there. And what I found to work best, honestly, is just take a paper towel. If you just need to drain a little bit out of your reservoir, just take a paper towel and soak it up. It doesn't really hurt anything, as long as it's a clean paper towel. Let's go ahead and put our rubber cup in there. Yeah, we pretty much drained just as much as we needed to out. Just want to make sure that the brake fluid is at a good level, right in between low and high, of course. And that's perfect. All right guys, we are done. The brakes are bled. They are a million times better than what they were. They're not squishy at all, so I'm super stoked about that. Again, I'm gonna leave a link in the description below for this kit or an equivalent kit that's just as good as this one. It'll help you guys out a ton if you ever need to bleed your brakes, which you should at least once a year. If you guys enjoyed this video or found it helpful, don't forget to leave me a like and subscribe below, and I will see you guys next Saturday.